your culture, education, upbringing, beliefs, experiences, imagination, relationships, personality, and your values are some of the things that have not just eaten deep into your nature, but they have become your very nature. When was the last time you questioned any of these things? When was the last time you questioned how you think? Join me, Emmanuel Utomi, and my guests every Monday from 9 p.m. on PRZ 109.2 FM London on Paspektives, because how you think powers your worldviews, actions, and your ultimate reality. So, come on. Let us explore alternative ways of looking at life's issues. Paspektives. What you already know should not stand in the way of what you could learn.
Hello out there, you are welcome to the prayer rallies on PRZ 109.2 FM, and this is Paspektives, the show that is designed to take you one step closer to a better life. And my name is Emmanuel Utomi. Good evening to you, my dear listener. Thank you for coming in and sharing your time with me again this evening. I'd like to say a very, very, very big thank you. I'd like to advise that, hey, you know what? Go out, get a piece of paper and pen, because today's program promises to be loaded. And before I go any further, I'd like to remind you that if you have any questions, if you have any comments or topics that you would like for us to discuss on this program, or that you'd like to share, send in your ideas. You can send me an email. The address to send that email to is paspektives@przfm.com, or tweet at Paspektives. And the spelling for Paspektives for this show has not changed. It remains Paspektives. That's Paspektives. People ask me, Emmanuel, why did you choose to spell perspective in a different way? I said it's because the program in itself is different. The program is designed to encourage you to question how you think. The program is designed to help you develop the habit of thinking differently, and also Paspektives is designed to help you develop a solution and progressive mindset. So in its very nature, Paspektives is a show or a program that is designed to trigger you, to help you challenge how you think, to get you to the point where you begin to question the norms, the standards, and the things that you seem to be taking for granted that you are not aware that you are taking for granted. So once again, you're welcome. Yes, you can send an email or a tweet, or if you prefer text message, the number to send the text message to is 0757-260-5435. You are welcome once again to a brand new week. It's a week that God Himself, the Lord Himself, has made, and the Bible says we will rejoice and be glad in it. For our regular listeners of Paspektives, I'm sure one of the things you've noticed is that it seems that we're not running a particular theme this month, and you are right. Yes, this particular month has been a unique month, and we're addressing several issues that are very, very dear, particularly issues that has been raised by one or two listeners out there. And I hope for those who raise these issues, I hope you're getting what you expect. And if not, like I said, send in your comments, send in your questions, and we'll be more than happy to tackle them. I'd like to say once again, thank you to those who sent me feedbacks, particularly about last week's broadcast. It was powerful. It was not seriously planned the way it came out, but I strongly believe that someone out there was being delivered, someone out there was being set free. And I declare that for those of you listening to this broadcast, that the God that rules in the affairs of men will intervene in your affairs and bring you good news this week in the name of Jesus. That your steps will be ordered aright. For those who have heavy hearts, you are burdened in one way or the other, I ask that God himself will send you relief left, right, and center, that by this time next week, you will indeed have a testimony that will bring glory and honor to the name of Jesus Christ. And so shall it be for you in the name of Jesus. Right. Today, we're going to be looking at moving forward. That is what today's broadcast has been titled. And I'd like to say, you know what? For those who've stayed with Perspective, particularly from the beginning of the year, one of the things that you'd realize, that you'd remember, is that we started this year. We started talking about, in fact, for the first month, we discussed the topic planning a successful year. And you know what? We are in a new quarter, and I'd like you to look at the past 3 months. I actually want to challenge, because we're talking about moving forward. But in order to move forward, we need to understand what has happened in the past so that we can move forward much more intelligently. So I'd like you to look at January and February and March and ask yourself this question: what have I been able to achieve? Now, if you compare that with the plans, the resolutions, the decisions that you took in January, how far would you say that you have come? What have you been able to tick off on your list, or on the list of items that you'd like to achieve this year? It might even be that you haven't been able to achieve everything, but would you be able to say to yourself that you are making progress? Or would you say you have not made progress at all? And indeed, this is what will be at the heart of today's broadcast. We're going to be looking at things that you should do. Actually, you know what? We're going to be reviewing some of the things we've done over the past 3 months, and we're going to be visiting them again, because I just don't want a situation where you've just listened for the sake of listening, but I'd like you to listen and get something out of it. In the Bible, Apostle Paul said that for him to repeat those things that he has said earlier, they are not grievous, but they are actually beneficial to you, the listeners. So we are going to go over some of those things we've talked about. So if you feel that you haven't been able to achieve some of the goals that you set out to achieve, I know for some you'll be saying, hey, come on, Emmanuel, it's just the 4th month of the year, there's still time. I accept. But would you be able to look back and say, yes, this is where I was in January of this year. However, I can boldly say that considering A, B, C, D, I can boldly say that I have moved forward. Would you be able to say that? Or would you be able to say, of a list of 10 items that I penciled down to achieve, I can boldly say that I have achieved one, and I am confidently working on achieving the others? Can you say that? And if you cannot say that, then maybe it is time to review what you've been doing. This program is not designed to condemn you, it is designed to encourage you. Like I said, Perspectives is designed to help you develop a progressive and a solution-based mindset. We know that things will always happen that might impact life, and sometimes we know that some of those things that will impact life may not be friendly or desirable or pleasant. However, you need to understand that in most cases in life, in fact, in all cases in life, it is not so much what happens to you that makes the difference. It is the interpretation that you give to those things that will impact or that will determine how you go forward and respond to that situation. Put it this way. Do you realize that the same things that are happening to you today, for which you have developed excuses, for which you have found reasons not to move forward in life, those same things and sometimes worse things have happened to other people, and they have used those same situations and circumstances as a leverage, as the reason to move forward in their lives. So, at the end of the day, it might not be so much what has happened to you, but actually it is how you choose to interpret those things. So, how have you been interpreting the last 4 months? You know what? For what is left of this program, we're going to be considering some of the things that can impact or that can aid you to move forward for the rest of the year in order to help you achieve whatever goal it is that you've set for yourself. And regardless of the aspect of your life that you've set that goal, all these points will apply. So it might be concerning your career, it might be concerning your health, it might be concerning relationship, it might be in relation to your finance, it might be in relation to your to how you have chosen to live your life on the whole. But whatever aspect you choose to apply this points on, I guarantee you, if you choose to work them out, it will definitely make a difference for you. So here we go. And before I go on, I'd like to remind you once again that you are listening to Perspective on the Prayer Rally Zone, PRZ 109.2 FM. And Perspectives is the show designed to take you one step closer to a better life. Whatever you as an individual would have defined a better life to be. So, let's kick off. So the first point we're going to be looking at is constructive discontent. So if you're going to make progress in any aspect of your life, in any field whatsoever, you need to get to the point where you develop what I call constructive discontent. Now, what do I mean? You see, sometimes, and you might find this very hard to believe or accept, sometimes we are where we are. Sometimes we find ourselves in certain situations because we have chosen to be there. That's one. Sometimes we are where we are. We find ourselves in certain situations because we are happy to be in those situations. Now, it might not be one of the things that you'd like to hear me say this evening, but you know what? For you to move from that situation, for you to move out of that situation, you need to develop not just discontent, but constructive discontent. Now, what do I mean by constructive discontent? You see, you can be discontent with certain situations that you find yourself in. But you know what? It doesn't necessarily mean that you're willing to do what it takes in order to leave that situation. You might know what is wrong. You might know, or you might be aware what you ought to do to move ahead in that aspect of your life. But you may not be ready to pay the price to move forward. Constructive discontent simply means identifying where you are, being dissatisfied with where you are, understanding and identifying where you'd like to be, but being willing to pay the price to move from where you are to where you'd like to be. You see, before progress can be made, you need to become discontent. We agree with that. You see, there's a difference between complaining about a situation and actually doing something about that situation. You know, some people tend to believe that the more they complain about the situation, the more they talk about it to people who are willing to listen, the more they talk about it, the more they feel they're making progress. It may not necessarily be that way. So I'm saying to you right now, from this first point, that if your choice is to move out of the situation that you find yourself and you'd like to make some form of progress forward, then not only do you need to know what progress looks like for you in that situation, but you have to be willing to identify what you need to do and move on to paying the price to do those things so that you can move ahead. So here's my question to you. Are you just discontent, or can you boldly say you are constructively discontent? Even where you can say to yourself that you are not constructively discontent, question, are you willing to be constructively discontent? And by that, I simply mean, do you know where you like to be? Do you know the price that you should be paying? That is, do you know what you need to do in order to move ahead? And lastly, are you willing to do what it takes in order to move ahead? Like I said last week or sometime before, the challenge is not that we don't know what to do. Most times the challenge is that we do not do what we know. If I asked you this question, do you know one thing, no matter how small, something that you could do starting today that will move your life ahead? I bet the answer will be yes. And since the answer is yes, my question to you is this. Since you knew what to do, or since you know what to do in order to move your life ahead, question is, why have you not been doing it? It is time to become constructively discontent. The year is far spent. I'm going to say that again. The year is far spent. It is time to take action and start to do the things that you need to do in order to move ahead. Point number 2 is understanding or knowing why you are in your present situation. Ask yourself, why am I in this present situation? It might be in relation to your career. You might be looking at moving ahead or changing careers or gaining a promotion in a place of work. The question you need to ask yourself is, why am I here? You see, the reason this question is key is that knowing why you are in your present situation will help throw some clarity on that situation. Look, there are people who are on their jobs at the moment who may not be happy, but the only reason why they're on that job is because it pays their bills. Now, if you understand that, I'm not saying that is wrong, but if you understand that that is why you are on that job, then it gives you a greater clarity about why you are doing the things that you're doing. So every time that boss comes and talks to you anyhow, or every time that colleague or those colleagues of yours make life unbearable for you, you can stick with it and say, I know the reason I'm here is because I need funds to pay my mortgage. However, it should also trigger a thought in your head, something that probably would go like this. Is this the only place that I can work and get funds to pay my mortgage? So when you ask yourself questions like this, it helps throw clarity to it. Consider also questions like this. Why am I in this situation? Take time out. Seriously, take time out. Find a spot where you will not be disturbed, and then come up with a truthful, realistic, practical answer for yourself of why you think you are in the present situation that you find yourself. You could also ask yourself a question like, how did I get into this situation? What were the circumstances that led me onto this job? What were the circumstances that led me into this relationship? How did I get into this predicament or joyous situation, as the case may be, that I find myself? What other questions could be, what habits do I have? What habits have I picked up? Or what habits have I formed over time that may be reinforcing my staying in this situation? Look at it this way. You are where you are today for several reasons. And this point simply highlights you identifying those critical factors that have enabled you to consistently stay in that present situation regardless of what has been happening to you. So, what habits do you have that have reinforced you staying in this situation that you find yourself? You know, there are people who have been or who are in abusive situations, in abusive relationships, or who are on jobs that they're not, you know, you're not getting paid enough, but you know that you have what it takes, the skills, the understanding to get another job, yet you stay on this job. Why? What are the habits that you formed? What are the things that you have picked up that has made you decide to either consciously or unconsciously stay on that job? You should try to identify those reasons. And this takes me naturally to the next point, which I'm going to be discussing, which is to do what I call strategic analysis. And by that I mean have a clear first-hand understanding of what the problem or challenge really is. I pause for a reason. Do you understand what the actual problem is? Now, if you are trying to move forward, the question is, do you understand why you are where you are, or what forward means to you? Which are the 2 points that I've discussed earlier. It's talking about strategic analysis. Sometimes what we assume to be the problem may not be the problem in any way, shape, or form. And the truth is, if you are able to develop constructive discontent and then ask yourself those critical questions of why you are where you are, what you're invariably doing actually is that you're actually doing some strategic analysis. Sometimes you are actually backing up the wrong problem. I think it was Stephen Covey that talked about the difference between a leader and a manager is that when you have a team and they're cutting grass, the manager ensures that the grasses are cut at the same level, while the leader climbs up a tree and identifies if they are cutting in the right field. So the question is this: are you cutting in the right field? Should you be where you are? The problem that you are out to solve, if you eventually solve it, would it deal with everything else? I remember I had a conversation with a young man that I was indirectly coaching, and he said to me, look, I'd like to move ahead in life. And I said, well, what does move ahead look like to you? And he gave me a list. And I said, all right, so what are some of the things that you think you need to achieve in order to help you move ahead in life? And right on top of it was to improve his finances. And when he gave me the other items on his list, after a critical analysis of those items, it suddenly dawned on me that every single one of those points that he felt if he achieved would help him move ahead in life still turned around to finances. And I said to him, if you had an improvement in your finances, if you had more money, do you think your situation will improve? And then he just kept quiet. And he said, you know what? I am not sure I can confidently say a yes to that question. You see, sometimes people have been in situations where they think they understand what the problem is, and they go after it with all their resources. And after solving the assumed problem, realize that the contentment, the joy and happiness that they thought they would have once that problem has been solved is not actually there. Now, why is that? Here's my theory. Probably they haven't identified the main problem or the main challenge or the main issue. Probably what they solved was one of the core issues, but not the core issue itself that would help them move ahead in life. Have they been able to solve a problem? Yes, they have. But have they solved the problem they were supposed to solve to help them move ahead? Not necessarily. You see, but someone will say, Emmanuel, what are you saying? Look, if I knew how to solve this problem, if I knew what to do, I would have done something about it. So I admit that it is possible that due to several factors, and one of it could be because you are the one involved in that problem. Because you're the one involved in that problem, it might make it difficult to identify the steps to take. It might be difficult to be able to objectively analyze that problem. So here's what I recommend. Find someone. Maybe you need a coach or a mentor or a friend that you know will not pull any punches when it comes to talking about all the things that you should consider or that you should do in order to move out of that problem. You need people around you that will look you straight in the eye and tell you the truth. People that you know that even if they're saying hurtful things, you know they still mean well. Maybe you need people like that. We are discussing how to move you from where you are today to achieving those goals that you set for yourself at the beginning of this year. And by the way, if you did not set any goal for this year, then maybe this is the time to set those goals. Someone once said that if you have failed to plan, then you are planning to fail. If you do not have set goals for this year, if you do not have set goals for this month, how would you know when to celebrate? Or are you just going to go with the flow, just the way things are, up until you realize that, hang on, nothing is happening in the way that I want it to? So you still have time, you can set goals. And there's something I remember I talked about in January, that while I will advocate that you set goals for every aspect of your life, I mean, have goals for your finances, for your career, for your health, for your relationship, for your environment, for personal development. Yes, I say have goals in those aspects of your life so that you're living a much more holistic life. But I did say this, that you know what? Of all those goals, when push gets to shove, you ought to be able to identify at least one of those goals that you will not give up on. That if you give up on the other 999 goals, that there will be this one that come hell or high water, come rain, come shine, for you, this goal has to be achieved. For you, this goal is a point or is a question of no retreat, no surrender. That you're willing to give up on every goal, but not on this one. And what I'm saying is that you must have at least one goal this year that you're willing not to give up on, that you're willing to pay the price, that you're willing to give whatever it takes to in order to achieve. You ought to be able to stand at the end of this year and look back at this year and say, I may not have been able to achieve so many things, but I can point to this aspect of my life and say, in this area, I made improvement. So this is the goal that we're talking about. This one goal that you will choose not to give up on. This one goal that you will achieve. We're discussing the steps that you can take in order to help you achieve that goal. Once again, you are listening to the Prayer Rallies on PRZ 109.2 FM, and this is Perspectives, the show that is designed to take you one step closer to a better life. And my name is Emmanuel Utomi. The fourth point that we're going to be discussing today is to try to have an alternative perspective concerning the problems or concerning this problem. You know, one of the goals of Perspectives as a program is to help you develop a solution-based mindset. Actually, is to help you develop a progressive and solution-based mindset. One of the things I've identified is that most individuals would either have a problem or a solution mindset. Do you see the situation or the issues or the circumstances that you find yourself in, or when you're going through a problem, do you see it as the end of the road? That's it, I failed, it didn't work, oh, woe is me, what am I going to do now? Do you see it as a terminal end and that's it? Or do you see it as an opportunity to start afresh again? And as I would usually add, to start afresh more intelligently. You see, it is very clear that the way you view or the way you interpret a given situation will definitely determine how you choose to relate to that situation. When I started, I said something today. I said, it is not so much what happens to you that makes the difference, but it is how you see that issue. You see, if you see a particular situation as a challenge, chances are you might want to rise above it. But if you see it as a problem, for some, it might be the end of the road. It's a problem, let's give up and let go. If you see a particular situation as a stumbling block, then you might relate with it as something that is designed to hinder you from achieving your goal. But if you see that same situation as a stepping stone, then you realize that it is there for you to help you move to the next level that you desire. Do you realize that all forms of promotion will come with some form of test before that promotion actually comes? You see, if you get promoted to a position that you have not been tested for, then I can guarantee you that when you get into that position, you will be tested for it there and then. What wise people try to do is to build the capacity that they need while on the way to the new position that they desire, as opposed to wanting to build that capacity while they're on the job. Not because it's wrong. Actually, you know what? Sometimes it might even make sense to build that capacity while you are on the job. That's what some people call on-the-job training. However, to cushion the impact of certain surprising situations and circumstances, it might make sense where the opportunity presents itself for you to build that capacity or those capacities before the opportunity arises. Remember this slogan, that proper preparation prevents poor performance. That's what we're talking about here. That if you prepare well ahead, that when that situation comes up, you are able to glide through it. So we're talking about developing a solution-based mindset when you find yourself in situations and circumstances. So here you are, you have set a goal for yourself or something you want to achieve. And while on your way to achieving that goal, something happens that throws you off. You can decide to shut the door, or you can decide, you know what, I can do something about this. You see, sometimes, and this is the challenging bit, sometimes when we are unable to find our way out of a situation, especially when this situation now persists, when it goes on for a long time, you know what happens? Some of us may likely get to a point during this problem where we now decide to give in. We just decide to accept it as our lot in life and then move on and you know what? Some would even move one step further from not just accepting it that, okay, this is how life is treating me, but we now put together a series of reasons for why there doesn't seem to be a practical solution in sight, for why there doesn't seem to be a practical solution for getting out of that situation. I mean, look at so and so, look at this person, they're going through the same situation. In fact, I'm even better off compared to them. We tend to cook up excuses, reasons for ourselves why we should remain in that situation. But you know what? Sometimes we can become so engrossed in a situation that it consumes all our energy and analysis, such that we don't have any time to look at practical solutions. Now, this actually serves as a guide for the first 2 points that I discussed. I know I talked about being able to analyze the problem. I know I talked about being able to ask yourself why. What tends to happen is that some people now stay with that. They spend and invest all their time in understanding the problem, not because they would like to get out of it. No, just because they would like to make sense when they're explaining why it is a problem to someone else. They want to be versed in that problem. They want to know the ins and outs of that problem and leave it at that. This point of developing a solution-based mindset says move one step further from there, where now that you understand the problem, now that you understand why you're there, now that you have done your basic analysis and you understand the intricacies, now find a solution. Don't sit down and become an expert analyst for that problem. It is not good enough. If you want to make progress, you need to move beyond that point. And a case in point that will illustrate this example I have taken from the Bible. Now, if we look at the book of John, chapter 5, I'm going to read verses 1 to 3 and then verses 5 to 9 in the New Living Translation. This is what it says. Now, we're talking about having a solution or problem-based mindset. Now, look at this. It says, afterwards, Jesus returned to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish holy days. The Bible says inside the city, near the sheep gate, was the pool of Bethesda, with 5 covered porches. Crowds of sick people, blind, lame, or paralyzed, lay in the porches. One of the men lying there had been sick for 38 years. When Jesus saw him and knew he had been ill for a long time, he asked him, "Would you like to get well?" "I can't, sir," the sick man replied, "for I have no one to put me into the pool when the water bubbles up. Someone else always gets there ahead of me." Jesus said to him, "Stand up, pick up your mat, and walk." And instantly the man was healed. He rolled up his sleeping mat and began walking. But this miracle was performed on the Sabbath. Now, the point I'm trying to get out of this is this. Here's a man who has been suffering this particular ailment for 38 years. Now, in that time, he had gotten around to a place where the story goes that an angel will come stir the water, and anyone who gets into that pool the first person that gets into that pool, whatever sickness, whatever ailment, whatever health issue, whatever problem it was that this person had, this person will be cured. So, after 38 years of suffering the same problem, the Son of God, who sends the angel to come in and bubble the water, stands in front of this man and says to him, "Would you like to be made well?" Now, I know the man may have his reasons for being where he is. I know he may have his reasons for the answers that he gave. But it's actually his answers that caught my attention. This man goes ahead to analyze for Jesus what it is that he's going through and why it is he has remained where he is for such a long time. You know what? His reasons are actually valid. But you know what? After all said and done, he still remains in that situation. See, my question to you is this. Regardless of the reasons that you have for where you find yourself, regardless of why you think this problem is a problem, regardless of the analysis that you've done, my question to you is this. What difference does it now make if you're not going to take active steps to move ahead, to use that information that you now have to help you overcome those challenges? What do you say to people who come around you offering to assist you? Do you cook up excuses for them that will discourage them in the very first place of even supporting you? Or do you tell them that, look, you know what? I am ready to move ahead in life. Jesus was able to look past this man's reasons and excuses and said to him, you know what? Enough of the excuses. Enough with the analysis. Rise up and work. Pick up your mat and go home. Contrast that with someone like Nehemiah, the cupbearer of King Xerxes in the Bible, who had a burden to rebuild the walls and the gates of Jerusalem. And regardless of this burden, when he had the opportunity and the king asked him, how can I help you? Nehemiah just went out and just told the king, I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this. What am I saying? Your analysis of the problem, of the situations and the circumstances should lead you to generate a list of the kind of support that you would require in order to move ahead, in order to overcome this challenge. Why? So that when the opportunity presents itself for you to escape, when the opportunity presents itself for someone to help you, you know exactly what to do. Actually, even where the opportunity does not present itself, because you now know what the challenge is, you are able to actively move ahead, seeking those solutions, seeking those support that will enable you move out of that situation. So, we've looked at developing constructive discontent. We've looked at having a clear understanding of why you find yourself in the situation that you find yourself. The third point we discussed was doing strategic analysis of where you find yourself. And the fourth point we looked at was developing an alternative perspective to the problem. That not seeing it as an end in itself, but as a means to an end. You do realize that sometimes some of the things that you grow through gives you the opportunity to develop your intelligence, to develop your skill, to develop your capacity to solve problems. So these are the 4 points we've discussed so far. The fifth one will be for you to plan and to execute and to be very, very, very aware of the consequences of a changing environment on your plans. You know what? Regardless of how well you plan, regardless of how you put things in place in order to achieve a certain goal, I need you to understand that when it comes to execution, you have to build in the flexibility into your plans to adapt to a changing environment. What do I mean? And I need you to think about this. What I'm about to say, I really need you to process it. Do you realize that every single plan that is put in place is based on certain assumptions for its successful execution? I'll say that again. Every single plan that is put in place is based on certain assumptions for its successful execution. Every single plan that is put in place is based on certain assumptions for its successful execution. Which means during the planning stage, you assume that certain things will be in certain ways, so that when you act in a particular way, you will get certain results. Remember the phrase, all things being equal? Yes, that's what it means. But what I'm saying is that for you to achieve your goals, you need to understand that we do not operate within a static environment. We live in an organic environment. It changes. I'll give you a fine example. Remember there was a day I was going to pick up a friend of mine from Heathrow Airport, and I don't know, I love using the sat nav, and for me the M25 is a beautiful road from moving from my home to the airport and back. Why? There are no traffic lights. I mean, you just get on that M24 and you just go for it. So when I took out my sat nav, I just assumed I was going to go on M25 and I just started driving. But somewhere along the line, I realized that this sat nav was rerouting me. Well, that's what the Americans would say. Was rerouting me from the M25 to going in through central London. And you know what? Central London is not a route you want to take on a weekday to Heathrow Airport. But you know what? I persisted. I wanted to stay on the M25. And then something happened. I realized that immediately I burst out into the M25, it was gridlocked, and I mean it was packed. The cars were not moving. There must have been an accident or something. And then it suddenly dawned on me that the reason the sat-nav was trying to reroute me was to ensure that I didn't get into that gridlock. Fortunately, I had the opportunity to turn off the M25 at some point, and now I stayed with the sat-nav. Now something funny happened. While I assumed that the route was going to go through central London, what the sat-nav actually did was to direct me through back roads. I mean, we still went through central London, but they were back roads. We cut out the main traffic regions, and funny enough, I still ended up at Heathrow Airport on time to pick my friend. Now, what am I trying to get at? You see, for me, the assumption is that to get to Heathrow, I get on the M25. It's the smoothest, sometimes not the fastest, but the smoothest and most stress-free route to get to Heathrow Airport. But you know what? On this occasion, it wasn't. See, my plans to get to Heathrow was based on the assumption that the M25 freeway or motorway would be free. But on this occasion, that motorway was not free. But you know what? I still wanted to insist to achieve my goal using the M25. What I lost sight of is what most of us do. We get to the point where we unconsciously or consciously substitute the goal for the plan. Now, what do I mean? My goal on this trip was to get to the airport. The plan was to go through the motorway, the M25 motorway. Ultimately, it is the goal, the getting to the airport to pick my friend, that is the most vital aspect of this whole situation. So to sit and insist that I must achieve that goal by going through the motorway was not a wise move. And that was what the sat-nav was saying. Your assumptions at the stage of planning make sense, but when it came to the state of execution, situations had changed. And what you needed to do was to adapt your plan to fit into the changing situations and circumstances. So here's my question to you. What is the goal that you want to achieve? Tell me, what goal is it? What plans have you put in place that you have said to yourself, this is how I will achieve this goal? Now, do me one more favor. Ask yourself, what were some of the conscious as well as the unconscious assumptions that I made while I was drawing up that plan? What were they? Because if you're able to understand what assumptions you made that you may still be insisting on, you may realize that the situations and circumstances within your environment may have changed such that your assumptions at the stage of planning are no longer valid. Now you might find yourself in a sentimental situation where you are refusing to change your plans because you feel this is how this goal must be achieved. And I'm saying to you, remember that your plan is not the same as the goal. Do not get emotionally attached to your plans. Be clear with your goal, but be flexible with your plans. Be absolutely stubborn about achieving your goals, but also be absolutely flexible as to the means and ways of achieving those goals. The only caveat I'm just going to add to that is that those means and ways of achieving those goals, they have to be legal. Because I don't want anyone out there saying, well, Emmanuel did say we should be flexible about how to achieve our goals, so I'm going to do this. No, it has to be within the confines of the law. You know what I mean. So please stay within your goal. And you know what? I'd like to remind you that you are listening to Paspektives on PRZ 109.2 FM. And as I sign off for today, I'd like to say, you know what? Whatever it takes as you go into this week, do something, no matter how small, that you know will take you that one step closer to that better life that you seek. And as you do it, I know that the God will serve will help you achieve that goal. Once again, thank you for listening. I'd like to say bye-bye, and same time next week, see you. God bless. Bye.
Your culture, education, upbringing, beliefs, experiences, imagination, relationships, personality, and your values are some of the things that have not just eaten deep into your nature, but they have become your very nature. When was the last time you questioned any of these things? When was the last time you questioned how you think? Join me, Emmanuel Utomi, and my guests every Monday from 9 p.m. on PRZ 109.2 FM London on Paspektives, because how you think powers your worldviews, actions, and your ultimate reality. So, come on, let us explore alternative ways of looking at life's issues. Paspektives. What you already know should not stand in the way of what you could learn.